God has given all of us a mission to make disciples here and everywhere for the glory of God.
Minus 10, 9.
We want our church to be a launch pad for sending people out on the mission God has for them. Regardless of who you are, we all have a role to play. We are all involved in God's story. We pray that the story shared through Mission Control will encourage you to see how God is calling you to be used by Him. Hello, my name is Amanda Levy, and I'm the Communications Director here at First Baptist Melbourne and the host of this podcast. Today we have Cindy Volz joining us. Cindy has been a member at First Baptist Melbourne for 3 years now, and she's been leading with Operation Christmas Child. You said the number and I totally blanked, but it was like over 20 years.
27 years.
27 years she's been involved with Operation Christmas Child, and she kind of heads up that ministry here at First Baptist Melbourne, in addition to you work with student ministry too. Mm-hmm. So she's very active, very involved. And so I'm excited as we go into, if you're listening to this somewhat live as it's being released, we're kind of heading into the Engage Conference and our Global Missions Week. And we're heading into the season of Operation Christmas Child with the National Collection Week in November. And so I'm excited to hear her heart for this and the story of how God's brought her in this. So yeah, before we get into all of that though, we have our fun space-themed icebreaker. She's very nervous for this. But the icebreaker today is, if you had the opportunity to be an astronaut for a day, first, preliminary, if you had the opportunity to be an astronaut for a day, would you take it or not? Would you want to be an astronaut for a day?
I don't know. It's kind of scary, risking your life.
I think it's scary. I think all the things they do on Earth are cool, and once you're
right.
in space, that feels cool. But the transition. So let's assume you're an astronaut for a day. Let's assume you've done all the scary stuff. You're in space. Let's assume that we're not worried about safety.
Okay.
What would be something you would want to do as an astronaut in space?
It would just be fun to do a lot of gymnastics and things like that.
Right?
Yeah.
The zero gravity.
Yeah, that would be so fun.
Feeling of floating. I think I would want to do a spacewalk. I mean, with a tether. No, with the satisfaction that I'm going to make it back to the ship.
I would
safe.
want to try all the sports things. That would just be so fun.
I think that would be fun. Well, as much fun as it is talking about outer space, thought we'd talk a little bit about your space. So where does God currently have you on mission in your life right now?
Several places. So, I mean, for the past 33 years, I would say that my number one ministry has been to raise my own children to know and love Jesus.
How many children do you have?
I have 4.
Okay.
And so we just, number 3, we took to UCF 2 months ago.
Oh, boy.
And so our youngest, we're in the thick of all the senior stuff.
Oh, boy.
And then we also have 2 grandchildren. So we just started the Grandparenting Matters class. We've been doing that.
Oh, nice.
As you said, I love teens, and so I'm one of the discipleship leaders on Wednesday nights for the 9th grade girls.
Nice.
And I love missions, so I am currently the bookkeeper, I guess, for Psalm 96 Ministries, which they are planning churches, and they have a seminary on the Chiapas River in Ecuador.
Okay.
And then, of course, this Operation Christmas Child, we're going to kick it off Sunday at our church, and I'm considered the project leader and the drop-off location leader.
Nice.
So,
what does it look like to be a discipleship leader in the high school ministry?
So it's growing. We have 250 plus on the roster now. And so we, just for 9th grade girls, we have 4 leaders.
Wow.
And we are starting tonight, dividing them into, because we have over 30 girls on our roster.
30 9th grade girls. That's crazy.
So we're dividing them up so that we can make them legit small groups, you know, and really get to.
What does a Wednesday? My kids are young. What does a Wednesday night in the student ministry look like?
So they have just fun hangout time for the first half hour, and then we go in and we have praise and worship, and we have a teaching, and then we divide up into our smaller groups for like a half hour at the end.
Okay. So you're one of the small group leaders then? Okay. I ask this for the shameless plug. We're looking for a lot of student ministry volunteers. And so if you're looking for a place to serve, there's a little, what would you say to someone who's considering or thinking about serving in student ministry?
Oh, it's so fun to be part of this age where their critical thinking is in gear, and they're just trying to figure things out. And there's so much change and so much fun at that age. So
awesome,
it's needed. And they say so many people make lifelong decisions before the age of 18, and so you can be a part of that.
Yeah. That's awesome. How did you get involved with Psalm 96 Ministries in Ecuador?
Oh, so that was very good friends of ours who started the ministry originally was Ted and Rosalie Waring, who are members here.
Okay.
And but they've gotten older, and so they passed it on to our very good friends. And so my husband has been down there, and my son on a mission trip. My son's been there twice.
Okay.
And so we just love what it is that they're doing, that they're planting churches. And that's something that fit I could do.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for just about 3 or 4 years probably.
Oh, okay.
So,
Fairly fresh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Really
okay.
fresh.
And then finally, Operation Christmas Child. That's like the bulk of everything. How did you initially get involved with Operation Christmas Child?
Okay. So it's only been around, I think, 31 years or so.
So you were at the ground floor.
So I had never heard of it.
Okay.
And we were part of a co-op preschool with my son, and we were meeting and it was through Brevard Community College. And so it was a secular, but we were meeting in a tiny little Baptist church on Glenham in Palm Bay, and the church secretary, and she'll never know what impact she's made. You know, she came to us and she said, well, since you all use our facility during the week, will you please take part in this Christmas project that we're doing?
Yeah.
And so everyone did it. I mean, how can you not? She gave us the brochures, and we're like, I can take my daughter, and she can pick out things for a girl her age. I can take my son. He can pick out things for a boy his age. We're teaching them to, think about others at Christmas time. It's just a really, really good project. So we did that. And then I got on their mailing list. And when I did, I found out, this is Samaritan's Purse. I know. Now, Samaritan's Purse has been around 50 years now.
Yeah.
But even then, I said, they're the first ones on the ground whenever there's a natural disaster, whenever there's a refugee crisis, a war, a Ebola outbreak, anything. So I said, and I loved what they do because they're doing it in Jesus' name. And we all know that you can meet everybody's physical needs, but we all, the spiritual needs is what all of us need. Yeah. And I had even read Franklin Graham, Billy Graham's son, heads it up. And I had even read his book, Rebel with a Cause. And so I just thought that was a great thing. And then as I found out more about how they're using the boxes, I learned that, so a lot of these communities, they're staying in them long term, and especially if it's an impoverished area. And then they had other things. They had well projects and projects for buying livestock and things like that. So they're working and building relationships in these communities, and they would make connections with the pastors in the area and set up, they would say, let's invite all the people in the community to a celebration. So they just invited them to this celebration. And then when they came, and the kids didn't know, many of them had never received a shoebox ever before, a gift. They had never received any kind of gift ever before. But this was such a great way to understand the gospel because they're getting something from a person who does not know them on the other side of the world, and it's unmerited. So grace starts to make sense. Unconditional love starts to make sense. All this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So before they open them, they either sometimes would show the Jesus film to the parents, or maybe the pastor would give a testimony or something. And then I brought to show you, they had this.
Yeah, you want to show it there? Yeah.
The greatest gift of all. So they translate it into their language. So this has been translated into about 80 different languages. So they
Is it like a comic book?
So it's,
Oh, like a children's book. Okay.
So it's like a children's book, and it presents the gospel. Uh-huh. So they would read this to them first, and every kid got a copy to take home. And the number, it just clicked. And so it was so productive, the number of kids that just wanted to follow Jesus after this. And so they would connect them with the local pastors. But then I've gotten even more impressed that over time, so what they've done now is they've even gone into areas where there might not be a church established yet, or something like that. Or people would say, well, what about follow-up? What are we doing to teach people, what does it mean to really follow Christ? How do you study your Bible? How do you evangelize? All this kind of stuff. So so about 15 years ago, Operation Christmas Child started this. They call it the Greatest Journey. And so they have, they'll say, who wants to come to a 12-week follow-up discipleship? And they've had kids that they'll be so excited, they'll come, they'll invite their friends, they'll tell their parents. Next thing you know, when it's over and they have a grant, and then at the graduation, they give them everybody a New Testament, again, in their language. And so by the time this is over, you've got enough people to plant a church sometimes, you know. So that's been really productive too. So anyway, I said, we've got to do this in our church, you know. So I just went to our church and said, can we start this? Can we lead this? And have been doing it, and our family, you know, has been a part of every part, you know, ever since. So
have you been kind of at this same position in terms of leading you gave the two positions. It's leading the actual receiving of the things. Then there was one other thing. So the other one is now our church. Yeah. So the year after we started doing it here, the Space Coast area director contacted Doug Malden and said, we have been praying for you guys because of your location and because of your size to be a drop-off location. Gotcha. So that the other churches that could be a place where we could bring them all, and then we take them to the central place for the county, and then they put them in a semi and take them up to either Atlanta or North Carolina to the processing center. So that's Have you ever been to any of those processing centers or in any trips? Yeah. So we took our big kids on to the one in Atlanta and worked there. And then 2 years ago, our family and the Walton family went to the one in South Carolina. Nice. So what is it like when you go there? So you can be given different positions, but most of what we did was you're inspecting the boxes. Gotcha. So every single one, before it's sealed up good and done and packed for the final time, they have a list of all things that can't be in there that should, because the churches aren't supposed to be checking for that. You're just supposed to take them, and then there's one place where people are trained to say this is what should and shouldn't be. And then they make sure everyone is a quality box. So they have filler items that you're supposed to make. Make it all kind of even. Make it a decision. Not to make them even, because you're not taking but you're not taking anything out that's good. Yes. But yes, to make them all full and make them all quality. So So what have been some of the most exciting things that you've seen in your 27 years of doing this? Oh, just stories of, they have all these spiritual impact stories that they send you every year of kids that got just the perfect thing that they need and might have been something you wouldn't have thought or something like that. And even the pastor that we work with down in Ecuador,
came and talked to the teens last year. And we said, have you used, and he said, oh, we love Operation Christmas Child. He's used it to he's planted 37 churches or something in the last that many years.
Through the gift celebration and then the discipleship program?
Well, no, he's other things, but that's been a way that they've used them to grow. Gotcha. To really build. Yeah. And so he told a story of, and we don't know how this one got by, but it was somebody that put just a bunch of socks. It wasn't the whole thing, but it was just
a large number of socks.
A large number of socks. And I think, you might look at it and say, what was that person thinking? But that is allowed or whatever. Yeah. And so he just told about this girl that had been praying and praying for socks. And there was a reason for it. But anyway, when she opened it, she was sitting next to his wife and she started crying. And his wife looked over and she said, I'm so sorry. We'll go
thinking
ask
they were sad.
Yeah, we'll go ask them for a different one. We'll ask if you can have something else or something. And she goes, no, you don't understand. I've been praying, or this. I think it was for siblings and that needed, something like that. And so anyway, but he told that story, and we've had so many of things like that.
That's awesome. In what ways? 27 years, it's a long time. And then as you've been doing this while you've been raising your kids, how has this season of ministry kind of changed, or has it been pretty solid?
Well, they've been involved in different ways as they've grown up.
Because how old was, now I'm aging your children, at what season of life were you in when you first started?
So like I said, Mark was 4, and then I had a 6-year-old. And so that I thought was a perfect age to get them just involved in the shopping part. Yeah. And then as they got older, my daughter did the year of the tsunami, I think it was 2004 or something like that, they had a special Easter collection because that was the time that Samaritan's Purse had not been allowed in Indonesia for years, and they were allowed to come into Indonesia. So they had this special, and so she hosted a neighborhood packing party, and we got a bunch of neighborhood kids, and we all went shopping and made things for it and had a party. And then, when they were in youth and when I've been working with the youth, we've had so many times where we've had, girls over to our house, and we would make jump ropes, or we would make the teddy bears out of washcloths or bracelets or things to put in, things like that. My daughter, that same daughter, got to actually apply and go to a distribution down in Panama. So they took a certain number of teens, and she got to go do that. And then my 2 youngest, they've when they were in elementary school, they each had, for one of their birthday parties, they said, don't bring me a gift, because it was a bigger party where you had maybe 15 kids, and you thought, I don't want to do all this thinking of all these presents. So they said, bring a filled shoebox for Operation Christmas Child. Nice. And one of the daughters, her birthday's in July, and
Christmas in July.
Yeah. So, but they've done that, and they helped. They've always helped, as they're younger, maybe holding the sign to say, come over here to the table and learn more. Or they've worked at the table or gone to the collection center or the distribution or the processing center. Any of those, they've done all that. My daughter, the one that's at UCF now, when she was at Calvary, she was in NHS, and she went to the sponsor and said, could we do this as a service project? And so she ended up having to speak to the student body and just organize that and figure out how to make it a competition between the crews and things like that. So so as they've grown, we've just gotten different ways that they've been involved with it. So
what have been sources of inspiration or encouragement along the way? I mean, I know you said the faith impact stories, but are there any others?
Well, just seeing how it changes the people on both ends.
Yeah.
You also hear the stories of people that just start doing it as a family and just you can now even people in poor communities can sometimes have access to internet and to sending you an email. So if you put in your letter, send me an email.
Have you ever done that? Have you?
So we have done that, and we've gotten some letters from kids in India and places like that. So that's neat when
cool.
when you hear things like that. So hearing, the people on this end that are impacted by getting more involved.
Yeah.
That's neat too.
That's awesome. I'm trying to think where I want to go next. What excites you as you look forward, whether it's with Operation Christmas Child or in general? You have 3 kids who are now out of the house. Mm-hmm. What excites you about the future of different ministry opportunities?
Well, so my husband is going to officially, he retired and then kind of went back for contract work for the last year and a half.
Gotcha.
But officially in December, he's going to be completely retired.
Wow.
And so we'll be empty nesters and not too long. And so I'm super excited about the fact that we belong to a church that said that they're going on 25 mission trips this year.
And they want everyone filled.
Yes.
So do you see that lot in your future?
Well, we're going to go Sunday, I think, to a meeting about leading one.
Okay.
But missions, it's always been a passion of mine, but I always felt like I was staying home and with the other kids. Yeah. We made a conscious decision that each of our kids will go on 2 international mission trips before they graduate. Okay. But yet I'm 60-something, and I just went on my second one, So I said,
have you been able to fulfill that for your kids?
I have for my kids. Okay. But I want to go on more.
You want to go on more.
And every time I hear somebody speak about one of them, I say, for that, there's a different reason that I get excited about, different ones, each one. So I would love to do more of that. My husband is he's heading up the disaster relief right now and hasn't been able to go on but just a couple call outs since he's still working. But I've gone with him to get the certification in 3 of the areas so that we can do that together, so that's something. And ESL. I've known about that program for years, and I've always kind of thought, I think that might be up my alley. I want to find, but right now I don't have time, but I'd love to learn more about it and see if that's something that I might want to.
Is there a particular area of the world when it comes to mission trips that you feel drawn to more?
I've learned so much more about Asia. Because my 2 youngest are from Asia. Yes. And so we've done, geography pair projects and studied a lot about China. And we've hosted 10 kids from Japan at different times. And so having friends there. And then we used to work with Florida Tech, their international student ministry that we had. And we have all these friends from India now. Yeah. And so I think that part of the world. Okay. My oldest daughter's best friend is working in Thailand at the time. Okay. And so I was like, I think I want to. How did you get involved with hosting the Japanese students? But then also, at what point did you feel like God was stirring your heart towards adoption? Or do you not want to talk about adoption? Because that's fine too. I can. Those are.
So 2 different questions,
right? And the Japanese that came after the adoption. Okay. So the adoption story. I mean. The shorter version, the shortest version would be just that. So our small group was reading "Don't Waste Your Life" by John Piper, and as we're reading that, and we just kept saying, you know what, we love how we're serving God with and through our children. Like we just want to keep doing this, at that same time, it just seemed like I was getting bombarded from different things. Stephen Curtis Chapman, he was my favorite recording artist, and he's about my age, and he just kept showing up on different podcasts talking about like how he was adopted, his older kids, his biological kids are my older kids' age.
Gotcha.
And then he had adopted these other kids, and talk just the plight of the girls in China, the one-child program and everything else. And my son at the time, do you know the Farley family?
Yeah, the name is very familiar to me, yeah.
So they're members here. And I believe they have 22 kids now.
Wow.
But at the time, they probably had 15. But their son Noah is from China, and their son Nathan is from Taiwan. And both of them were friends with my son, and so they would come over to our house, and we'd hear how they do things and how they do birthdays and just all these things. And I would say, Jeff, we can do that. I mean, if they can do 15.
If they can do 15, we can do one.
We can do two.
Or two.
Let's do a couple. And so there was that. There was my friend, one of my close friends, Vicky, who also goes here. She, her sister had adopted from China, and they were saving in a jar to do the same thing. And the tsunami, no, the hurricanes in 2004.
Oh, yeah.
I had just put so much work for the couple months before that. This was a short thing, but it just kind of, these were all happening at the same time. It's like I had put so much work into like landscaping in our yard. I finally had time to make it look nicer, and then it was just all destroyed.
Demolished.
And I said, let's put our energy and effort into eternal things, into people. Like, what are we, what are we thinking? So anyway, we thought, how cool is that we can take somebody that's from a communist, atheist country and raise them in a Christian home. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, I like
what
that.
we did. So then we weren't sure how we were going to handle the spiritual things, because we wanted them to learn as much of their culture as possible, but we wanted, we didn't want to elevate Buddhism and things like that. And so anyway, we did end up, that was just something we had to figure out after they came home. And as we did...
How old were they when they came home?
So one was 20 months and one was 5, over 5. And so... it just seemed like we were attracting. So all these people, I would be at the gym and there'd be an Asian American who would come up and say, "Are those your kids?" And then, she'd become their adopted grandma and start telling us all these local things that we could go to, and these Chinese Bible studies and things like that. So we would go to some of those so that they could meet other people and try some of this food and things like that. So we started doing some of that. And then I was coaching a soccer team, and somehow it ended up the assistant coach I got, he was a Florida Tech student from China, and ended up being very, very close, good friends with our family. And so he would have us over for food and to teach us things and show us things. And it was like just having them brought more of that into our life. We'd be at Panera and a woman came up and met us and invited us to dinner, like things like that. But then my one friend who was hosting, it's just a 2-week program that Florida Tech does, where it's a full English immersion kind of thing for high school students and they do different countries, but we were interested, Japan, you know? Yeah. And so she said, this is such a cool opportunity because they're here for only 1 weekend. It's 2 weeks, but it's only 1 weekend. And you have Sunday with them and you can take them to church. And they always want to come because they're curious.
Yeah,
they're so interested.
Sure.
And then when they do their report at the end and they say, what are the biggest differences? They always talk about what they learned at church. It's so neat. Cool. So we just thought, well, what a cool witnessing opportunity too. But then wouldn't this be good for the girls to have them? So the first time we did it was my girls were 6 and 7.
Okay.
So it was perfect. And then the girls that we had were about 14.
Okay.
And so we just had a really, really good time with them. And they just love them as their cute little sisters for 2 weeks. And then we just did it for 5 consecutive years after that.
Nice.
So.
Well, that's cool. I think the reoccurring theme I've heard through all these is just putting your yes on the table, just having the attitude to be willing. And I think it's cool how God then showed up. He had anxiety, and it just seems like he was always there to provide the answer. Like, here's this person in Panera Bread who's coming up. Like, you don't have to manufacture it, and yet he's providing. So that's awesome. And then I just seeing how that ties into the love for the globe, for the world, and different international trips. I think it's cool. I'm excited to see what this next season is like for you and what trips you might be able to go on. Maybe you'll double from 2 to 4 one of these days. Yeah.
I'm excited about that too.
What interest meeting are you going to on Sunday? Where is that trip?
It's not for any particular one.
It's the info to go.
It's info to if you want to lead one sometime in the next year or whatever.
Nice.
So, and I do think they have certain ones chosen already for you. But and Doug Malden has talked about. So we went on the trip to Ecuador this summer, and he had said he went last Christmas when they actually did a distribution of shoeboxes. So he asked if we would want to go on one of those. That seems like
it would be so perfect.
So, and I said, yes, of course. Of course we would.
Awesome. Well, the distribution is coming up November, but people can drop off boxes the entire month?
Yeah, the entire time.
Okay.
So we'll have a table set up in the atrium most weeks, and then across from the children's check-in for 6 weeks.
And the children are doing like a packing event, aren't they?
Yeah, I love the pastors here are all so supportive. They all just are so into it. So Jason Mole and Natalie Wood first of all, for VBS this summer, they made the missions donations, the competition for the offering was for Operation Christmas Child. And they raised $1,300 something dollars that won't even cover all the shipping for how many we're planning to do. Yeah. So they're going to pass out cardboard boxes. So I'll speak to the kids in the wharf on Sunday and tell them all about it and get them excited about it. They'll give them boxes and materials to go home and as a family try to fill some. And then they've assigned for each of the grades things to bring in that they're going to have a giant packing party too. So they're doing both.
Oh, cool.
They're going to do that on the 13th. And then, Ryan East has said, as long as I'm here, we're always going to be involved with this. He has come up with a way to make it part of our Discipleship Now weekend, which is always during Missions Week. Yeah. So what we'll do is take groups of kids by bus over to Hammock Landing, and they shop together, and we have a big packing party. And we even had, the ladies in Patchwork of Grace, the sewing ministry. Yeah. So they made last year, and they're going to make for us again, a whole bunch of drawstring backpacks.
Oh, fun.
A bunch of pencil cases.
Nice.
And even these washable menstrual pads.
Oh, yeah, that's a big item, yeah.
Yeah. So they're so cute. They fold up so small and they have little snaps and everything. So anyway, they're doing that. And a lot of small groups are doing it as a group together. I know the Axum small group did it last year. I know Cheryl Clarkson's Sunday school class, so people would do that and bring them in that way. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see how things go this year. Excited to see the future ministry opportunities. And I'm thankful that we were able to finally do this episode. We had 2 different hurricanes that rescheduled the recording. So, yeah, I'm thankful that we were able to get it together. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
And I look forward to seeing how this might encourage someone. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Control. If you're interested in learning more about Launch 10X and the different ways to get involved in what God is doing here at First Baptist Melbourne, a great place to start would be visiting our website, launchme.church.